Time now for Back Pages tonight, right here on Sky Sports News, so bringing you a first look at the sports stories in the morning's newspapers. And joining us are Jack Rosser from The Sun and the Times football reporter Charlotte Dunker. Welcome along to you both. Let's quickly run you through the back pages as we have them. Back page of the Mirror goes with this: risky Devils. United admits £2 billion stadium project could hit plans to invest in Amram's struggling team. And of course, Liverpool versus PSG. See pages 54 and 55. Of course, Liverpool going out on penalties. In the Telegraph, French fried. Liverpool suffer PSG penalty pain. You can see there Ousmane Dembélé celebrating. He's the man who got PSG back level in the tie. United's £2 billion stadium gamble. To the Times, again, on Manchester United's £2 billion new stadium, those incredible visuals that were released today, and of course Jim Ratcliffe making his remarks about it. Club admits it's taking a risk in building 100,000-seater arena rather than investing in team, but also talking about the champion hurdle and the Golden Ace, the 25-1 chance of beating Constitution Hill and State Man, both of whom crashed. They both went down over the course of that champion hurdle. Injured Woods out for season. Yes, once again, more injury woes for Tiger Woods. Back page of The Sun. Man United's £2 billion risk, but Sir Alex Ferguson backs brave stadium bid. Chumps on the jumps there. Drama's big 2-fallen champion on day one of the Cheltenham Festival. All right. Welcome once again to Jack. Welcome once again to Charlotte. Let's start off, and we have to, don't we, with a dramatic night at Anfield. Liverpool knocked out of the Champions League by Paris Saint-Germain, losing 1-0 on the night, 1-1 on aggregate, and after extra time, 4-1 on penalties. Let's go to the Telegraph, shall we? And the headline, French fried. Liverpool suffer PSG penalty pain. Just how agonising was this for Liverpool, Charlotte?
Yeah, it was a really disappointing night for them, wasn't it? I think everyone's talking about how big of a setback is it under Slot. And I think that just shows how successful and how they've been this season and what a good job that he's done, that we're sat here. This is only the second time that they've lost at Anfield this season. They're going to win the Premier League. The only other time that they've lost is obviously they got knocked out of the FA Cup. They've got a League Cup final to come at the weekend, and they were edged out on penalties by an exceptional PSG team. I think over the two legs, both legs were fantastic. Both goalkeepers had huge parts to play in the game. I thought Donnarumma tonight was excellent. Liverpool, I thought, played a lot better in this leg than they did in the first leg. And I think it was just unfortunate if they'd managed to take those chances. They had multiple chances in the second half to win the tie. If they'd managed to take them, then obviously it'd be a whole different story. But obviously a really disappointing night for them, but I don't think it should be blown out of proportion and being described as a huge setback, because I think in the grand scheme of where they are under Slot and what they are going to achieve under him this season, there's still so much more to come from them.
Yeah, I mean, under Jurgen Klopp, it took a while, didn't it, to sort of bed in, first final appearance, first trophy, and then the domination that followed. So perhaps it's easy to expect a lot from Arne Slot so early. You mentioned Gianluigi Donnarumma, Charlotte. Jack, let me put this one to you. I think, this man has history, has previous, doesn't he, of those massive performances in big games in this country.
Certainly does. He's a funny one, isn't he? Because there are moments in the game where you think, especially after what Alisson did last week, there were a couple of saves where he managed to get the ball but maybe let it slip and fell into a dangerous area. But as the game went on, he just started stepping up, and PSG were much better throughout the extra time. And then he just looks so imposing in that goal when it comes to the penalty shootout. The Nunez penalty isn't actually that bad. The Jones one's a bit more central. It's not two terrible penalties that have let Liverpool go out. They're two very good saves from Donnarumma, and he is someone that clearly thrives when you get this big moment. England fans obviously remember him doing it for Italy in the final at Wembley, and he's done it again here. It was an incredible game. Liverpool weren't great in the first day, but managed to hold on and get through. You then think with the way they started tonight as well that they'd be feeling confident, especially with it being at Anfield and the record they've got there, not only under Slot but in Europe in general, and it's maybe just unfortunate that they've met the first PSG team for years that have got some sort of a backbone and are able to stand up to bigger clubs and get through nights like these. So Charlotte's right, it is disappointing tonight. I think, the way they've been going, the fact the Premier League's completely wrapped up almost, you can put a bit more focus in the Champions League, but it still can be an incredible season for Liverpool if they win that league title that no one expected them to do at the start of the season.
Charlotte, I just sort of wonder how much Liverpool fans might be thinking about what might have been here. I mean, it's so rare for Liverpool, team like Liverpool, to win a first leg away and then go out of the tie. I mean, it's barely happened, doesn't it? But then also when you look at, would have been probably Aston Villa, 3-1 up against Club Brugge, for a place in the semi-finals. And then, you think, well, look, we're only, another 180 minutes away from a potential final. Do you think they would have been there thinking, oh, do you know what, we would have fancied ourselves in that quarter-final against Villa?
I covered Villa away in Bruges last week and was speaking to some Villa fans who were confident of beating Villa over the two legs, Liverpool, over the two legs if they got them. So I think dismissing Aston Villa as being small fry, I think it's going to upset a few fans. But yeah, I get where you're coming from in terms of Liverpool, in terms of what could have been. But look what could have been in the first leg if Alisson hadn't had that absolutely unbelievable performance and then Harvey Elliott scored that last gasp winner. Then they wouldn't have been in the position that we were expecting them to go through tonight. So I think it's really one of them where it's unfortunate with the way that the draws fall. And I think PSG look like they're the strongest team in the competition. Liverpool have come up against them tonight and they were equal to them over the two legs. If we look at the result, 1-1 over the two legs, wasn't it? So I think it is just a case of unlucky with the way that the draws fall, and they can't think of what might have been if Mo Salah had taken them chances in the first half, if Donnarumma hadn't made them saves in the second half. It is just one of them. If those penalties had gone in, it's just fine margins, and unfortunately for Liverpool, they didn't go their way tonight.
Yeah, it really is. It's kind of the definition of fine margins, losing on penalties, I guess. Jack, now, of course, Liverpool turn their attention to Sunday. Carabao Cup final live on Sky against Newcastle. What will have taken the greater toll? The extra 30 minutes plus penalties, or the psychology, the mental aspect of this?
I think probably the psychological thing will be a big one. We saw Mo Salah in the end in tears at the end. You've also got to think, is that the last time you see him, Virgil van Dijk and Trent Alexander-Arnold playing in a Champions League game for Liverpool, given their contract situations? It'll be a very emotional one. You've got leaders in there like Virgil van Dijk, who always comes out and speaks very well in terms of the focus, so he will be confident that they can get back up for it. But the other thing, of course, is the injuries. Slot's already said that he's not sure whether Trent Alexander-Arnold is going to be fit to face Newcastle. Kanate came off as well. I think that maybe was more tiredness, but that shows just how much they had to put in tonight. It was incredibly intense, hard work from both teams. They both put an awful lot into it. I was at Newcastle's game last night. They weren't fantastic, but they looked a bit more solid, a bit more confident, and would have taken a lot of confidence from getting a win to go into this final, having not only played a day earlier, but having not had to play anything like the time and the intensity that Liverpool did. So a lot of it will go into it. I think the emotion might count just a little bit more than the tired legs. These players are used to having to play intense games on a regular basis, but it's going to be a lot more of a challenge now. They've gone, the start of this week, you maybe start hearing talk of a treble. You could lose 2 legs of that in 1 week now.
What do you think, Charlotte, in terms of how it stacks up for Sunday? Because potentially, Trent Alexander-Arnold for Liverpool. Do you think, Eddie Howe might be thinking about that and how he might potentially tweak his approach given what he's seen tonight?
Yeah, I think the injuries are obviously going to be a concern, and the further down the week we get closer to the final, it's going to become more apparent and obvious how bad those injuries to Trent Alexander and Kanate are, because they're two really big portions of Liverpool's defence, and Slot will want them both to be fit. So that's going to be the biggest consideration for Slot and for, like you say, Eddie Howe going into that game. But the punditry team were saying after the game there that this is the best game that Liverpool could have after being knocked out a final. It's not just another run-of-the-mill league game where you've got to try and pick yourself up and get over this defeat. It's a chance for silverware. It's a chance for the first silverware of Slot's reign at Liverpool. It's a chance for them not just to get over getting knocked out of the Champions League, but to win something. So in some ways, I think it's maybe the best sort of game that they could have to follow this Champions League exit, because they have no choice but to dust themselves up and go again. Because in the league, maybe that might be slightly harder because it's becoming a bit of a procession, isn't it? We all expect Liverpool to lift the title, but this is a game, it's a must-win game. So I think it'll be interesting to see if they got that mental strength and if we see just how good this Liverpool team are.
It's funny, isn't it? You know, as soon as we get to this part of the season, or maybe just, you know, a few weeks ago, if there is a team that's still in all competitions, you mentioned that quadruple word, and it feels like, you know, it's a little bit of a curse, to be honest. We did a big graphic on Sky Sports News that here's Liverpool in the fourth round of the Cup. Here's Liverpool, you know, having points adrift in the Premier League. Look, if they do go and win the League Cup, Jack, and as Charlotte says, well, you know, they've pretty much won the Premier League. Would that be a reasonable season for Arne Slot, first time out of the box with Liverpool? Do you think he himself would have settled and signed for that?
Absolutely, it'd be a fantastic season for Arne Slot. I think the first time he's coming in to the Premier League, a manager that was relatively unknown to a lot of English football fans, having to take the mantle from Jurgen Klopp, an incredibly significant and big presence on Merseyside, someone that has taken this club to immense success in his time there, up against one of the best clubs in Manchester City that English football has ever seen, going head-to-head with them. Slot's benefited a bit in the terms that Manchester City have fallen off a cliff and Arsenal have had a number of injuries and problems all season, but you've still got to be there to do it. They've been incredibly dangerous, incredibly efficient in the way they've gone about it. And he's also, we've got to remember, he signed one player all season and we've not really seen much of him. What he's done is reshape a lot of players into something quite incredible. Diaz is playing fantastically. Mo Salah has gone to another height completely again this season. And you look at players like Gravenberch in midfield that look like they might be on their way out at some point and are now key parts of Arne Slot's time. I think at the start of the season, if you'd given Liverpool fans and Arne Slot top four and a run at one of the cups, they definitely would have taken it. So while it will be disappointing tonight, considering the position they got themselves in after an incredibly difficult first leg last week, this can still be a brilliant season for him, especially given it's his first season, having to follow on from that legacy when so many other managers trying to take over from a big manager leaving a club have really struggled. We've seen that so often, and Slot's managed to do it with ease, really. Yeah,
I think a Premier League title, a top division title for Liverpool would certainly soften the blow from tonight. That's no doubt about that. You mentioned, Charlotte, that you covered Villa recently and that they've been confident they could beat Liverpool over two legs. How confident they will be potentially against PSG?
Oh, I'm not too sure. Those supporters seem very confident that they would beat Liverpool, but weren't too keen on me in Paris. I mean, anyone who has watched PSG over those two legs against Liverpool, will just know how much quality they have in that team. I think Liverpool have even said that they were the best opponents that they've come up against this season. They've obviously already played Aston Villa, so that says how they rank against them. And I think everyone expects Aston Villa to beat Club Brugge tomorrow and go through. Obviously, they've got a 2-goal advantage to take into the home leg at Villa Park tomorrow. Everyone expects them to go through, but that would be such a tough tie for Unai Emery. But it's going back to his old club. Stranger things have happened. Yeah. You never know what can happen. But I know it's going to be a really tough task for Villa if they get through. But they've been quite consistent in the Champions League this season. So football's a funny old sport. You wouldn't bet anything past them.
All right, we will leave it there for a moment and take a break, other side of which we'll focus on the story dominating the back pages. Manchester United pledging to spend big on a new 100,000-seater stadium. Back pages is back in a couple of minutes. You are watching Back Pages tonight. Welcome back to you at home. Welcome back to The Sun's Jack Rosser and to The Times' football reporter, Charlotte Dunker. Let's get to the story that is dominating the sports pages. Manchester United's plans for a new 100,000-seater stadium. Let's have a look at the back page of The Mirror, who call them risky devils. Vision of a new Old Trafford. Actually, let's start off with that. The vision, the visuals. Jack, when you saw what this new stadium might look like, did you think, oh, that looks cool, or did you think Butlins? I
thought it was hideous when I first saw it, if I'm honest. It It's certainly ambitious. It's certainly something very different. It looks absolutely nothing like a football stadium from the outside, but I suppose, Jim Ratcliffe's been speaking about shooting for something iconic, and it's certainly something that will be memorable when people see it. Something that, once it's built, I'll certainly want to go and have a look at and see what it's all about. So I think they're ticking some of the right boxes there. The trident aspect of the three towers was not something that I don't think many people had twigged until it was explained to them, which is perhaps a little unfortunate. But it's certainly something very, very unique. And I think that's what clubs are striving for when they're going for these huge and very, very expensive infrastructure projects. Inside it looks like a incredibly modern, amazing stadium. If they can pull it off, the idea of regenerating the whole area is something that will be very attractive as well. But whether local people want to put up with that huge structure and those three rather eyesore towers is another question they'll have to get past among many.
Well, I guess the look also, inevitably is going to lead to references like circus and things like that. Charlotte, what do you make of it? What's the most striking aspect of this whole thing for you?
When I first saw it, I thought it looked like a circus tent, which, given how we've been talking about Manchester United and their performances on the pitch this season, seemed pretty apt. And I'm not sure when these multi-million-pound plans were being drawn up that was what they probably wanted people to think first. I also think it doesn't scream out, like Jack said, it doesn't scream out football stadium. And I think when you read a lot and there's been lots of comments and statements from fan groups that have already come out about the concerns obviously there's a lot of excitement around it, but a lot of concerns about it as well. And I think that is one of the concerns, that it comes across as a corporate structure. It comes across as somewhere where they could hold lots of concerts, which is obviously the plan as well. They want it to generate millions and millions, up to billions of pounds, obviously. So they want it to be, as Jim Ratcliffe said, like the Eiffel Tower of the North, where people go and people want to see this stadium. But to me, when you look at what Old Trafford looks like now, it's an iconic football stadium. It's historic. You compare the two and they're nothing like each other. I know that's the point. This is supposed to be Manchester United in the future. This is supposed to be moving away from that. This is supposed to be a new era for the club. I get that. But to me, I don't know, it just doesn't look like a football stadium. So I think, but that's probably the least of their concerns, what we think of what it looks like aesthetically. If they can be selling out 100,000 seater stadium, which I know they're more than confident that they can for every single game, the ambition for it should be applauded, really.
The one word that comes up in a lot of the paper headlines or derivatives of or synonyms for is risk or risky. Jack, how much of a risk is it? It's going to be costing £2 billion. They're already £1 billion in debt.
It's a massive risk. It's one that feels quite bizarre at the moment, given that Jim Ratcliffe was out yesterday saying the club could be bust by Christmas, and then overnight had a look down the back of the sofa and found £2 billion for a brand new stadium and complex and everything else that goes with it, which is a very bizarre one. But they have got that huge £1 billion debt that they're paying off and servicing, as you mentioned. And you've also got the fact that, given their short-term financial problems that they are working to fix, and you've got the fact that they need to invest in the team over that time to keep Manchester United competitive. They want to become the most profitable club in the world within 3 years. They're not going to do that without playing European football and competing right at the top. So they've got to clearly, given where they are on the table at the moment, build a squad that is capable of doing that. And that takes more money. We've seen with clubs in the past, Arsenal famously struggled when they were funding the Emirates to compete at the level that they once did under Arsene Wenger. And it was something he referenced a lot towards the end of his career. Manchester United have targeted winning the title in the next 3 years. Rick Ratcliffe and Omar Barada have been talking that up again this week. So it's going to be incredibly challenging to marry the two, of investing in the squad to a level that is needed to pull them a hell of a long way up to compete and be at the level of a performance that we saw from someone like PSG or Liverpool tonight, as well as Manchester City and Arsenal over the last few years. That is a lot of investment that's needed. And if you've got this sort of infrastructure project going alongside it, you're going to need a lot of money from elsewhere to be able to do both at one time.
Yeah, let's talk about that with Charlotte. I mean, this is the big question. Where is the money coming from to build this thing? And is it contingent on United somehow cracking out their A game at some point in the next, rest of this season and next season to then get themselves into positions where they are earning through, the prizes they win and the football they're playing on the continent.
I think the reality is that upon unveiling these plans today, that Barada didn't actually have an answer as to where exactly this £2 billion for this stadium is going to come from, but they seem confident that they're going to get that. There's multiple ways that he spoke about that. More shares could be released, shareholders could put more money into it. And I think the main thing is external investment. Manchester United as a brand are one of the biggest brands in the world. There will be, despite the fact that Manchester United are 14th in the league, and despite the fact they don't look like they're going to qualify for Europe next season unless they win the Europa League, there are going to be so many companies across the world, so many brands who are interested in investing in this stadium, the project, the regeneration project. And if they can get enough companies on board to give money, then that's going to help snowball effect. There's different things. They could sell the naming rights to the stadium. They're talking about they could sell the naming rights to the fan zone. There's so many different ways that they can generate the money. But the biggest thing, and I think a lot of what the fan groups are concerned about, is that the fans aren't the ones that are going to pick up the receipts for this. The fans shouldn't be the ones that have to pay for this at all. The fans were surveyed before to see if they wanted a new stadium or whether they wanted Old Trafford to be regenerated, and 53%, I think it was, said they preferred a new one, which is one of the reasons why they've gone down this route. But if you read any of the statements from the fan groups, they're all concerned, and the biggest concern is that they don't believe that the fans should be the ones who have to pay. Obviously, Manchester United are £1 billion in debt, so there's going to have to be a lot of plate spinning, a lot of new investment, a lot of different creative ways of getting money into this project, whilst also making sure that the team on the pitch aren't suffering. And Ruben Amorim needs money to invest in his squad in the summer if they're going to improve for next season. So there's going to have to be lots of different ways of investment that are considered before this project can finally start moving.
Well, we've got roughly about a minute left, Jack. Just what would you say is the strength of the fan sentiment right now towards this project, given the overall context with Ineos?
I think it's clear that there's a lot of excitement about it. There's been a few statements today, I think, from the 1958 group about it looking soulless and not perhaps what they wanted, which I think that there will be fans that will desperately want to stay at Old Trafford and just have that improved a bit. But I think going there, you realise that they're falling so far behind so many of their rivals, not only in the Premier League but across Europe. So this is something that is needed, and you've got to keep moving forward. But as Charlotte mentioned there, that the biggest thing, there's been a lot of anger towards Ineos and the Glazers and Ratcliffe for the sort of penny pinching that's been going on and taking little bits here when there are huge holes to be filled. The one thing they will not want them to come for again is the ticket prices. They've already had an increase. If fans see that that's the way that this stadium is being funded, then there'll be a very, very toxic feeling towards it. And that is not what Ineos and Jim Ratcliffe or the whole club will want towards this, what should be an incredibly ambitious and incredibly exciting and positive project going forward. That should be the focus, and ticket prices aren't something that can distract from that.
We're going to have to leave it there. Thank you, Jack. Thank you, Charlotte.